the Western Province Rugby Institute. So, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm biased, he's the best man that have walked the earth in terms of rugby. Nick, thank you very much for that. It was a humble beginning, and look at where we are now, today, and it's all because of your vision. You all know that Nick is the most successful. He still holds the record for the most consecutive test wins with the Springboks. I think it was 18. 17, sorry, Nick. And then coach Stade Francais, great success, top 40, and his last stint was Italy, which would be a country that a lot of you can relate with, you know, and how it was too. So I've asked Nick to come and talk to you about excellence in rugby. We look forward to your chat. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks. Listen, morning guys. First of all, this is it works better when I do talks for it to be a bit interactive, so I'll chat for a while and then get you a chance to have some questions at the end. But the subject was excellence in rugby, and that's being a bit arrogant to think that I can talk about excellence in rugby, but it was really talking about how you can use rugby coaching and try and improve any team you take, you know. And also, I think basically it's about whether you should adopt a coaching philosophy and carry that through any team that you coach, or whether you should know as much about rugby coaching as you possibly can, and then look at the quality of players you've got and adapt what you know to what is effective for them. Because I've been, in my coaching career, I started off as a player coach in France with 2 second division sides that I took up to the first division. And that was really a learning process. I was on the field captaining and coaching during the week. So it was, I was learning to coach at the same time as I was trying to play. I came back to South Africa and coached False Bay, which was a club side here for 2 years. And we were quite successful. Just quickly giving you a background, my timing was absolutely perfect because I'd been out of South Africa from 1985 to 1994. And in those 9 years, South Africa didn't play. I think they had the Cavaliers tour and they were out of rugby because of political reasons. So the coaches in South Africa had no experience really playing against overseas teams, and they were only playing against each other. And I think all of you will understand that the more you play against, if you just play in a small pool against each other, you start copying each other and you don't ever become innovative, you know, and you don't ever test yourself against other people who do different things. So I was fortunate that in France I was playing and coaching New Zealanders, Australians. There were obviously the French guys. I was lucky enough, one of my teams, Boulogne Bianco, we had match practices against the French national side. So Pierre Bébezier was the coach at that time. And he wanted, because we worked really hard on the driving maul. I had a really good pack of forwards, and they were playing against England, and they wanted to try and defend against the driving maul. So, you know, if you have opportunities as a junior coach in that sort of environment, you have to pick up things. You know, you have to pick up a lot of different ways of doing things. In 1992, the Australians went to France, and they'd just been world champions in 1991. And there was a bit of break in my program, 2-week break. We weren't playing, and I followed them around France, watching every single one of their practices. And it was quite extraordinary what I learned. I mean, there were no videos or anything, but I wrote down every single warm-up drill that they did, every single so any forwards, backs related skills drills I copied down, and then, you know, all their face play moves. And there was one incredible practice that I watched in Paris where in about an hour I didn't see one ball dropped. The whole practice, not one. Not from the moment those guys got in. It was Holland when he was very young, little Campisi, Leinach, those backline players, and it was absolutely incredible. And every player must have touched the ball, I reckon, 200 times in that practice. Props to them. So, just to give you a background, when I came back to South Africa, I found that South African coaches had never coached defence before, for example. So they didn't understand how to defend against 8-9, bring the 15 in and fullback. You know, they thought that you could defend that with the number 8 and the flanker and the blindside wing. They didn't realise you had to put another backline player across to the blindside. So when I first coached False Bay, I mean, we must have scored in the club competition against Stellenbosch, against sides with international rugby players, because there were the top players used to play club rugby and provincial rugby in the 1990s and hadn't gone professionally. And so, we'd score. I brought Falsebay out to Stellenbosch. We beat them 38. I think it's about the only time Falsebay has ever beaten Stellenbosch. But 5 tries we scored that day, because literally there had been such a dearth of knowledge in South Africa during those 9 years. And on the back of that, I then went on to take the Springboks. But obviously everyone starts picking up and learning, and in South Africa got back into international rugby. And people pick the video. You can learn whatever you want from videos. You just have to look at the Crusaders. Every game they perform in Super Rugby, or you have to watch the Brumbies back in the 90s, and you work out the way they played, who their key ball carriers were, who clean, who never touched the ball, who their key decision makers, and you can actually coach that way through just learning from the video. So nothing remains a secret anymore in coaching. When I left the Springboks and went to France, it was the Springboks. Listen, it was a massively privileged position, but given that I didn't think the South African coaches had as much knowledge at their disposal as they should have, and given that I thought that South Africans were bloody good rugby players, and I think I knew how to select properly, when I came in there, I was convinced, absolutely convinced, that I was a better coach than anyone in South Africa. So a lot of arrogance when you're young. You go in there, I was only 38 or 40 when I got the job. And because of my club teams, I coached Boland, which is a small provincial team, and we drew with the Bulls in Pretoria, and we lost by 1 point to a Stormers side. We came 5th in the competition. If we'd come 4th, Boland would have played Super Rugby. Thank God we didn't come 4th, because they just didn't have the potential. But just saying that all that success was based on lack of knowledge in South Africa more than my coaching expertise, in my view. I just happen to be a privileged person to have that information because I've been overseas for 9 years. But when you get the Springboks and you're playing against Australia and then they're the best teams, New Zealand particularly the best teams in the world. And what I was very lucky, because everything goes in cycles, even national teams go in cycles. And the cycle that Jake White had in 2007 and Peter de Villiers had of Matfield, Bucky's Boerter, John Smith, Habana at his best, Jacques Fourie, Fourie de Prix, those guys are the best players in the world in their position. Therefore, the Springbok coach should do well. If you've got a national side where everyone in the world thinks that you've got 7 players who are the best in the position, then I think, so it's your problem if you can't start winning games. And when I was coaching in 97 particularly 97, 98, and even going into 99, but those 2 years when we had a 17-match unbeaten run, I had probably 7 or 8 players who were acknowledged as the best players in the world in their position. I selected them, I think, in the right position, gave them, confidence. I think I used 17 players in 17 tests. I only changed 2 players, a centre who retired, and a wing who got injured and also had to retire. So the consistency was there, the continuity, the confidence, the players got a tremendous amount of confidence, and they really believed in themselves. And also, it happened, as I said, things are cyclical, and the time that we hit New Zealand was the time that New Zealand lost great leaders. They lost Fitzpatrick, and they lost Zunzan Brook, and they lost his brother, that other Brook, and Ola Brown. They had key players who retired just at the time that I started coaching. That makes a hell of a difference as well, because if you take over a team, a South African team that loses Matfield and all these guys, and suddenly the opposition start getting great leaders. For example, in New Zealand you have Dan Carter still there, Richie McCaw, and you've still got a guy like Kieran Reid coming through who's obviously going to be a great leader. Then it's quite tough, because at the top level it's about tiny margins, winning and losing. Just the captain talking in the right way to the referee. Your preparations are the same, your defense patterns are the same, your tactics that you're going to play the opposition know before you run on the field because they've watched how you play. So it's little tiny things, in confidence in the squad, a belief in each other, a great captain, the ability to talk to the ref in the right way, discipline on the field. Tiny margins can get you to win. And I'll give you an example of that. During that period of winning, we played Australia away, and Rod McQueen was coach. He's a hell of a good coach. He won the World Cup 2 years later. And we played them in Perth, and we won the game 13-12. We didn't play well. We had a really poor game, but to win away was a great result. But I know in my heart of hearts we shouldn't have won that game, because Ollie Leroux came on as an impact player. He was a Lucette prop for us, and he went off sides. He fell over a ruck. I mean, he's 135 kilos. It's impossible to miss. He had to be penalised. And Paddy O'Brien who's the IRB refereeing representative at the time, was refereeing the game. And he didn't penalise him. And I couldn't understand why. And after the game, we then played New Zealand, and then the guys got a lot of confidence. We beat New Zealand in New Zealand. And I heard afterwards, I heard Paddy O'Brien had spoken to his colleagues, the guys on the side of the field, and they said, "Shit, Paddy, did you see that offside?" He said, "Yeah, I saw it, but they've had a lot of bad calls against them, South Africa, recently. And I just felt it was their day. I didn't feel like..." Incredible. He just didn't, he felt that the way Gary Teichmann had spoken to him, he'd seen the way South Africa had played on the tour in '97 overseas. We'd beaten Scotland by 60 points, France by 50 points. The guy, he felt that in his mind meant that the referee felt it was South Africa's time. That makes a massive difference for a coach. Because a referee, as you all know, and all the referees know, you can penalise in any breakdown either side. So if you get the psychological benefit from your referee, and the referee feels, gee, I just think that that's why New Zealand were never going to lose the World Cup. Never. Not in a million years were they going to lose the World Cup in 2011. And I think that Craig Joubert is a fantastic referee, but not in a million years was he going to penalise France in the last 20 rucks that went across the 10-yard line. Roll away 7, roll away black, roll away. Imagine if you'd penalised them. They just had a bloody earthquake there. They'd lost the World Cup through forward passes, and shafted. The fuck, he wasn't going to get out of New Zealand. So that's psychological. Genuinely, if you're a coach, you've got to make sure that your team is regarded and viewed in the right light by the referees. It's just one of the best way you can do that is by, when you get an opportunity to talk to them, try and understand exactly what they do. And we had from the time I was coaching Stade Francais, but particularly when I was coaching Italy, we had guys who'd study, we had a referee who would study the referees and study areas of the game that they were particularly keen on. So some would be the breakdown, other guys would be, the scrum engagement. Others would be, you just never spoke back to a guy, never, just accept what he has to say. Another guy you could actually get at him, you could get at him. So get the captain to go to him 3 times, and he'd try and explain himself all the time, the ref. And keep on saying, well, I thought you were. The ref would say, but shit, they were offside. And suddenly the guy would start panicking, and it was in Rome, and there were hundreds of people screaming at the guy. Lawrence, another game we won, which I'll come to later, but was Lawrence jacking on another penalty in the last second of the game. We beat France in Rome, Italy, first time in the Six Nations ever. France did a double shove on our ball, and my Castro Giovanni I'd taken off, and my tight head was cutting off. Double shove, we collapsed. Scrum again. Double shove, we collapsed again. Penalty both times. Double shove again, and he told the number 8, French number 8, use it. He's got no right to tell him to use it. He said, use it, because he didn't want to give a penalty against Italy. We were leading 22-21 at Rome. The crowd was going mad. No ways did he want to give a penalty to deprive us of a first win against France. Now those are 2 examples that I know as a coach. I know I shouldn't have won those games. So the referee is very, very, very important. Very important in our team. Moving on from just talking about coaching philosophies. My belief is that when you take a team, if you've got a national side like South Africa, basically, even within that framework, you're going to have a strength more in the forwards perhaps, or in the back line, or a better goal kicker, or you're going to have a great drop goal kicker. Give you an example, 99 World Cup, I had Henry Honeyball, one of the greatest fly-outs that South Africa's ever had, brilliant defensively, attacked the game line, was great but playing loose forwards up. Our pack, and particularly the loose forwards, were devastating when Henry Honeyball played. Not a great tactical kicker, but he was my number 1 guy I put down, because against anyone, All Blacks, against the New Zealanders, they could never run through him. He was the best defensive fly-off in the world, and still, I've never seen a defensive fly-off better than him. And then there was another guy, Yanni de Beer, and if any of you have got memories to go back, Yanni de Beer was the guy who kicked 5 drops against England in that game, the IRB tried to change the laws after that game. They wanted to cut the drop goal to 2 points because they thought it was unfair. But we knocked England out by kicking 5 drop, because Yanni couldn't play like Henry Honeyball. He couldn't play flat. And we played the first 3 games, and we were playing poor rugby on attack. And then one of the players came to me, it was actually Brendan Fetcher, who's involved now with every team you can mention, Saracens, under 21s. And he came to me when he was a player, and he said, listen, Nick, you're trying to get Henry to play, trying to get Yanni to be able to play flat, but he's a bloody good kicker. He's a more Mornay Steyn than he is a Larkin, you know. Let him play a bit further in the pocket. Let's kick. We've got a great, and we had a very good pack of forwards, really good pack of forwards that could match anyone. And he said he can't play the running attacking game, but he can kick drops. So in one practice, we worked out, moves from a line out and a scrum, just bringing the ball back into the middle of the field. So just a crash ball from the centre, run off, one off, a pot of three, run it into the middle of the field, and then pass straight back. Go back to that World Cup. 3 of the 5 kicks come from pre-called moves, 2 from a line out, 1 from a scrum. 1 drop comes from a 22 dropout that they kicked, but they miskicked. He got it on the halfway line, he ran to the 10-yard and stuck a drop over, and 1 in general play. And we won 43-20, so you've got to adapt according to the players you've got. Now, if you're coaching South Africa, you can do that, because South Africa, in my view, I'm not going to write anything down, but South Africa, you've got the ability to pick the very best in your country. So you can, with South Africa, choose, and I'm going to talk about 2 different coaching philosophies here. I think there's a philosophy, a New Zealand, for want of another word, coaching philosophy, which is put pressure on the opposition by retaining possession, by holding on to the ball. So you hold on to the ball for as long as possible to get a penalty, and you hold on to the ball as long as possible to force defenders to come up so that you create space at the back before you kick. First phases are important, but they're not your strike moves will only come from first phases in opposition 22s. You're not going to start mauling, if you're New Zealand, you won't start mauling from your 22. Some teams will maul from their 22. It's basically a chance to win the ball, get the ball into play, and our skills are better than your skills. And if we hold on to the ball well enough, and we've got good distribution of forwards and backs, and they keep their distribution over the field, we can retain possession in such a way that will put you under pressure, and we'll either make a line break or get an advantage through a penalty. The other philosophy, which I call the South African philosophy for want of a better word, which was South African teams played far more, and you'll see Brumbies against the Bulls, you'll see an example. This weekend, you'll see perfect examples of the 2. You'll see Chiefs against the Crusaders, 2 New Zealand philosophies playing against each other. And even though it's an Australian team, the Brumbies play like South Africa because they've got a very South African coach. And the way they play is their mantra is execution over innovation. Therefore, do little things right and don't make mistakes. Now, that goes against keeping the ball in hand, because if you have to make 50 passes to get a penalty, we might not make 50 passes without dropping the ball. And if we drop the ball, then you can make an error. And so South Africans coach a lot of rugby on error rate. Cut our error rate down, cut our error rate, get out of our half, play tactical rugby. Tactical, it's bullshit tactical, but tactical rugby means kick the cuck out of the ball so you get out of your half. It does. Don't play in your half. That's tactical rugby in South Africa. The All Blacks in their 22 will see the 3 players are back. They'll see the wing, blindside wing, open side wing, fullbacks back. So they'll run it. They'll say, well, you've only got to fly off 2 centres, and you've only got your scrum off, open side flank. Maximum, you can't press defend with 3 players. So they'll say, we've got fly off, centre, fullback, wing, blindside wing, we've got 6 against 3. Why on earth wouldn't you run it? So you watch, Crusaders will run it in their 22. And they'll bring that blindside wing up. And when the blindside wing up, and then they'll move it back to the midfield, and then you're not sure if they're going open and blind, then they'll split it with the left foot and right foot kicker, and they'll hit grass with their kick. And they won't kick it out. They'll kick it miles downfield. One guy has to chase across to get it. But they prepare the kick. South Africa doesn't prepare a kick. South Africa will win the ball in the lineup, will drive him more, 2 options. Pass straight to the scrum off the top, and he'll bomb it straight away with a blindside wing chasing, and a whole disciplined line of runners, and every guy knows exactly what he's got to do. So it's bloody hard to counterattack. If you get it, and us guys are picked on their box kicking expertise, not their ability to pass quickly from the base to the scrum. Their box kicking. You look at our guys, he doesn't kick well from the base, can't pick him. New Zealand, they think, can he pass? That's the key thing for New Zealand, is passing. Ours is kicking from the base. So they relieve pressure. Blindsiding will chase, and you've got all sorts of calls. Bierner, legs, if you're going to tackle him. In the air, you go for his hands. Hanna, Bierner, or else he's got to stay. If it's too long, then he joins the defensive line. And you have 8, 9 defenders in the first line against 3 counter-attackers. And we say to you, counter-attack. Have a bash. Because we love tackling in South Africa. So have a bash, we're going to tackle the shit out of you, and we're going to turn the ball over, and we're going to get a penalty. So the philosophy of South Africa is to give you the ball, in bad positions, not to give it to you, but to kick it in such a way that you get it in a difficult position where we have more numbers on more defenders and force you to take bad decisions. We're very, very strong on the set piece, and when South Africa rugby falls down is when our set piece isn't good. So if our scrum gets stuffed up, or our line-out is stuffed, then we haven't really got much after that, because we don't have a face play game which we can play with confidence, because we never coached it in South Africa. But our kicking game is very accurate. So Fourie du Preez was a brilliant passer, and he was also a brilliant kicker. And he's the Dan Carter, in my view, of scrum-offs in the world rugby in the last 15 years. Absolutely brilliant. And that wasn't said by me, who's the next South African coach. It was said by the New Zealanders and Australians and England. They said, we've never seen a scrum-off who can take better decisions. But if you haven't got a Fourie du Preez, then we'd rather have a good kicker. So Hougaard might be a guy who could challenge around the fringes, but his kicking game isn't quite good. So we put Pienaar in there. His kicking game is a bit better. And you'll see that South African philosophy won't have a second 5'8". You know, New Zealand have a first 5'8" and a second 5'8". Fly off and inside centre. Two completely different roles in South Africa. Kicking fly off and a crash ball run out inside centre in South Africa. In New Zealand they'll have Dan Carter and Aaron Major. Sometimes they'll go with Sonny Bill, but only because he has the ability to offload, or Ramon Nonu has the ability to offload. They pick a big guy who can also offload. So their coaching philosophy is based on retaining possession. They pick players for that role. So look at any flyer for New Zealand. Why did they win the World Cup with Donald? He's a cuck flyer. He couldn't even play properly for Bath. He comes, but in the New Zealand context, Carter gets injured, Slade gets injured, Cruden gets injured, and the guy, the fourth choice flyer, they still win a World Cup with the fourth choice. Because that guy knows exactly what New Zealand rugby requires out of him. What he's got to do in every situation. He knows that he's the guy who calls for the wide ball, he calls for the ball that doesn't go from scrum off to forward, it goes from scrum off to him. His inside centre or his outside centre will call whether he gives it to us forward, whether he gives it behind the back to a back. So that their roles are so clearly defined that they can take, you can take Cruden, put him in. The All Blacks won't have a crisis of confidence in the rugby championship. If he gets injured, Beauden Barrett, they won't have a crisis of confidence, he'll be brilliant. He'll still beat Wales and beat Ireland and beat Scotland with any of those, and maybe South Africa. So it's not about the quality of your play, it's about the quality of your team play. And that guy's role in the team play. That's what's key to the New Zealand selection. Open side flanker, they don't even quibble. They don't say, we say, well, we're not sure if we want a fetcher or whether we want a line-out jumper or a guy who's a ball cap. They say we want an open sider who slows down opposition ball and hopefully turns one or two over, and who makes 25 tackles a game, and he puts pressure, and he's first to the breakdown to secure our ball all the time. So when they've got a Richie McCaw, they look at Todd, and then they look at Sam Cane, and they look at that type of player. There's a very clear definition for every single position on the field. Now, that's because their coaching philosophy doesn't mean that they don't kick. It doesn't mean that they haven't got good set phases, because they understood if they had to play South Africa, they have to have a bloody good scrum. Otherwise, you can have the greatest phase play rugby in the world. If you're getting pumped in the scrum, there's no way you can, because you try and play. I'd like to see Reid perform well off a retreating scrum. Can't. All you can do is scramble and turn it around and turn it into like a retreating loose scrum. No? But you can't launch a good attack off a scrum going backwards. So they've had to improve their scrummaging. Their line-out is brilliant. They've got a great line-out. And Sam Whitelock must be one of the best locks in the world, if not the best. But he's got Retallick behind him. He's still a great lock as well. Then you've got the other guy with the Italian name who plays, what's his name? Who plays for Crusaders. There are three world-class locks there. You know? So they've improved their tight phases as well, which means that they can compete with South Africa on our strong points, and they've got the face play game that can eventually tire us out. When they beat South Africa by, 4 tries or 5 tries in Joburg last year, I mean, we were all over the place by the end of that game. You know, we were trying to rush defense, if all guys came out of line, I mean, they were scoring tries. I mean, there were 4 All Blacks could score a try after one set piece move from the left scrum. Our defense was so confused that any one of 4 All Blacks could have scored a try. So that is the All Black philosophy. When they get it right, they're the best team in the world. But South Africa can beat them on the occasion, especially in knockout games and in South Africa here. If they get first phases right, if the kicks are absolutely perfect, if our defense and our pressure defense stops them from creating space and tackles them behind the game line, But our philosophy is very much a play without the ball philosophy. We start playing with the ball from the 10-yard opposition, from our opposition 10-yard to the try line. And playing with the ball means that we throw the ball in the line out and we drive it. And we've got hundreds of moves off drives, South Africa. So you throw it in, we've got peel-offs, we've got blind, you'll do a drive and then the guy at the back will pass to a scrum off to the blind side wing, going open, or scrum off the blind side wing going blind, or scrum off behind the blind side wing to the fly off, back with a switch to the inside. Lots of our attacking moves are based around a driven line-out. So we look at first phases as our key attacking area. The further we move it away from our first phase, South Africa, or some teams who play like that, the more we risk getting the ball turned over and the more we risk making mistakes, and that's error rugby, so we don't like playing it. So I'm being a little bit just simplistic here, but if you look at those two, you as a coach have got to go, which I'd coached, I'd been fortunate enough to coach South Africa, brilliant side, we scored a shitload of tries. We scored a lot of tries because the backs were bloody good. It was 50 points at Parc de France. It's still the world record, beat France 52-10. And we scored, the winger scored, guy Peter Rousseau scored 4 tries that day. We scored 7 tries at the Parc de France, in their last game at the Parc de France, in front of 52,000 French guys. So we scored a lot of tries and we played a lot of very attacking rugby because I had the quality of player to do that. When I went to Stade Francais, I took a look. We had a very good side. I had Dominici, I had Fabien Galtier as the scrum half, and when he left, I had Augustine Bichot who came as scrum half. Diego Dominguez was my fly half, and I had Skrilla who came the next year. So I had the ability to attack and play phase play rugby. And so we had a good pack of forwards. My front row, Peter de Villiers and Sylvain Marconnet were both the French front row forwards. And again, we beat Toulouse by 30 points to 18 in the final, and we beat Perpignan 38-20, I think, in the other final. So we won 2 finals by playing 15-man rugby. I then became director here of Western Province Rugby, but I love coaching. Coaching, I'm not a good director because I don't like working for other people and don't like administrators much. But one thing I got right here was we managed to get this I didn't get Western Province Rugby right, but I managed to get this institute going, which was an absolute, and I appointed Steph and they got the institute up and running, which has been a fantastic success. And I wanted to get back into coaching, so I went back to Italy. And I thought, listen, Italy got a good pack of forwards. I'm sure I'll get their backline to play this phase play rugby, and we'll have some fun, and I'm going to improve them. Arrogantly went over, thinking I'll just use the same tactics that I used with Springboks, the same tactics I used with the French. It worked there, it worked the next place, why shouldn't it work? So I get over there and I start explaining to them about, I don't know if I'm teaching, but the 1-3-3-1 distribution of forwards, 3 off 9, 3 off 10, you leave your 2 open side flank and your number 8 out wide. Lots of phase plays, hold on to the ball. We couldn't do it. We lost by 40-odd points in Wales, and when we played Ireland, close game but we lost. Played England, close game but we lost. Managed to scrape a win against Scotland in my first year. I thought, geez, this is much harder than I thought. The problem was, there wasn't a single Italian backline player who could run 100 meters faster than 11.5. The fastest, Sergio Parise in sprints was as quick as any of my backline players. So you're trying to play a rugby game of possession, but even if there was a half gap, your guy didn't have the ability to take the half gap, or if he got an overlap, the opposition could just turn around and catch him in 10 yards. So if we played against a Pacific Island team, like Fiji or Tonga or Samoa, who had these magnificent athletes, they were able, one guy was able just off, if we drop a ball from 70 yards, and number 8 in a Pacific Island game picked up a ball, we were on our way, we had an overlap, passed, the guy dropped the ball. Number 8 picked it up, he ran 70 yards. Not one of our players could have catch him. And he was a number 8 who ran the length of the field and scored. So I looked at try origins for the opposition after being there for a year. And 70% of the tries scored against the Italian sides I'd coached, my Italian team, were from our areas. So I realized that as a national coach, you also get the guys 10 days before. So it's bloody hard to get the guys absolutely 100% in perfect running lines and the right width and good decision making from 10. It was really, really difficult. So I decided to go the South African route with Italy and go, listen, let's start from basics. great scrum, good line out, slow backs, but physical backs, so we didn't lose the ball. Played close with centres or blindside wings or fly off, to set momentum. Forward runners off that. And a lot of kicking from line. A lot of kicking from line. And it was all, listen, we didn't win hundreds of games. But, we had 17 consecutive wins with the Springboks. Well, I think my teams have got 14 Italian records for the least points scored against them by national sides. So we haven't won. But we lost to the All Blacks 28-9. In the last time they played them, they lost 101-0. We played South Africa in Witbank, we lost 26 or 29-13, I think it was. The last time we played against them, in 99, they lost 101-0 as well. We played France and won 22-21. Thank God Lawrence was the ref and was too scared to give the penalty away. That's why I was able to win that game. But that was at least a win at home. We played the All Blacks at San Siro Stadium in front of 80,000 people, 80,000 Italians. I mean, no one would have even conceived that Italy would have been interested enough to send 80,000. 20 points to 6, we lost, and I'm proud to say that Italian side, hold the world record for the longest scrum. 7 minutes it took, 7 minutes. And I'm proud because they didn't have the ball. They can't fucking score. We got the ball, we're putting it in, they can't score. And we had a very good scrum. Castro Giovanni, 23 resets, listen to this, 23 resets, 7 penalties, a yellow card against Crockett, who lost his international place for about 18 months after that. The score was 20 points to 6 after 70 minutes. At 78 minutes, that scrum was finished. It was down, it went in, and the referee, Dickinson, made he was the most embarrassing decisions. I mean, he kept on giving us penalties, but he wouldn't give us a penalty try. And they kept on collapsing the scrum. So we kept on, instead of having a penalty, we just carried on scrumming. Because we knew we were stronger than them in the scrum. We knew Crockett was boring in. So eventually he lost patience and sent Crockett off. And so we went for the double shove. They kept on collapsing. And he wouldn't give it. And the only thing, I went into his change room afterwards, and I said, I'm not going to talk to you about whether the third scrum was a penalty try, or the fourth one, or the sixth one. All I'm going to say to you is, if the team defending had been at Italy, and the team attacking had been New Zealand, are you telling me you wouldn't have given a penalty try? Are you honestly saying that New Zealand, you'd have given Italy 21 reset scrums, 7 penalties and a yellow card, and not given a penalty try? It's bloody embarrassing that referees can cheat like that. It's embarrassing. He was embarrassed. He said, well, I didn't think you were going forward. So I said, well, how the hell do you go forward when they collapse? You can't go forward if they're lying on the ground. It's unbelievable sometimes what they can. But imagine that. But we could have lost to the All Blacks 20 points to bloody 13 in front of 80,000. It would have done. It already did a lot for Italian rugby. But just to say, before you can ask questions, you've got to play to your strengths. You have to play to your strengths. Now, you can counter that Italy, after I left, played fantastic rugby under Brunel in the last year's Six Nations. They really did that. And they played phase play rugby. And if you look how they performed, they beat France, they beat Ireland, and they played brilliantly against England away. They put England under a lot of pressure. I think they lost 18-11, 18-10, I think it was the loss. But England were really under pressure at the end of the game. So why then, why can't then it proves that Italy can do it? But my view is that same team, that same Italian side, that had spent 3 years getting its set pieces right, getting its kicking game right, getting its ball retention right, getting confidence, because they weren't losing by 50 points. They were only now losing by 19-15 to Wales, and 20 points to 17 against England in Rome. And beaten France once, and we beat Samoa, first time in the history of Italian rugby, we beat them 24-6. So those players got confidence. Now, you off the back of confidence, you can build, and you can add on. You can add on the attacking game. But you can't build an attacking game when a side hasn't got the confidence in its set pieces, and its defense, and its kicking game, and its ability to compete. And sadly, when they came out here, and they played Samoa, and they played South Africa, and they played Scotland, 40 points against South Africa, and look, they were in the game at 20 points to 10. They tried to run it out of their own half, drop the ball, try. Kicked badly, no proper lines of defense. Habana ran 750 meters and scored a try. No pace, still no pace. conceded 3 tries in the last 10 minutes. They then play Samoa, the one team you must never run the ball against, ever. You just make sure that you turn them around and you're driving mauls and scrum, and they've got better and better at that Samoa. But the one thing you do is you never kick on them and give them a chance to counter-attack. Never. And you never turn the ball over against them. 39 points they took against Samoa because they tried to out-Samoa Samoa with an attacking game. Don't be stupid. Don't do it. Don't try and do that. And the last game they played against a completely decimated Scotland side, which had no 4 players, and they left 6 players back at home. They lost in the last minute because Sergio forgot his defensive pattern and rushed out of line, and suddenly Strokosh gets the ball and runs over and scores, and they lose by a point. I mean, really desperately disappointing because they moved away from understanding where their strengths are. So, without talking about excellence, just talking about realism, if you're coaching, be realistic about your team. Be realistic about where your strengths are. Don't think you've got a coaching philosophy and people are going to give you marks for bloody artistic merit. That's cut. You get marks for giving your team the very best chance to win. Very best chance to win. Okay, gone on enough. Any questions there, guys? Go.
This is a very general question. I read an interview 2 years ago with Evan Haywood.
Yeah.
And he said that you were one of his most influential coaches. I'm just wondering how you raise academic as a coach.
Oh, well, that's very, that's really very complimentary. In fact, he's a fantastic guy. Declan Kennedy is a wonderful person, and it's not a bad thing to start out by being a good guy, by being a genuinely nice guy. I think he was a schoolmaster, and he understood about his ability to communicate, his feelings for his players. He was a sensitive personality. I thought he was a fantastic person. I thought he conducted himself always incredibly well. His teams, he won a Grand Slam with that side. His first 2 years were particularly successful. But I'll tell you a little story about him. He almost broke down in tears. My last game for Italy was against Ireland, and the score was 9-3 at half-time, and then we lost my fly-off. Orkera went off concussed, and Castro Giovanni did his hamstring. And we haven't got enough players in Italy, so you lose 2. A fly-off is key in Italy, and the tight head prop was even more. And I've made a big stuff up. I put a loose head cover who could play a bit on the tight head instead of getting it. Tight head is crucial, so I should have put a tight head cover. And they scored 3 tries in the second half, and we lost at 35-10 or so. We got properly beaten in the second half, and it was a hell of a disappointing way to leave. But afterwards, I went up to shake his hand and said, thanks, it's been a great run, because 4 times I've coached against him. And he was a hell of a nice guy. He said, he didn't say what you just said, but he just said, it's been an honor and a privilege to coach against you. And I just want to say that every time I've thought that you put out, he said, I followed your career with South Africa and Strandfontein, and I've always thought you put out teams that do their best, that try their very best to play to the best of their abilities, which is a hell of a compliment. It's much better getting a compliment from another coach than it is from a supporter or someone from the media, because that guy knows what you go through.
And as a coach, how was you?
No, he was very good. I think also the cyclical thing makes a big difference.
Okay.
Suddenly that last year, and once people start the thing, is he going, is he staying, is he going, geez, it undermines you as a coach. Look at Robbie Deans for Australia. There was no way he was going to beat the Lions. You can't beforehand if they say, well, if he wins, are we still going to keep him in a toxic environment and 2 guys out getting pissed at 4, not getting pissed, eating hamburgers, what are they doing at 4 in the morning? Inability to control his players. And the sniping from the press, sniping, and the players start saying, you're on borrowed time, mate. You don't care if we like you, you're on borrowed time. And once that happens, once the players realize that you're not there, for another time, so they have to listen to you, then it starts drifting. International coaching is becoming like soccer now, which is a real pity. It never used to be like that. But now, guys, with Robbie, he must have had a terrible last 3 months, having to handle such a difficult adversary as the bloody Lions, and at the same time, everything. You've been here 6 years, you haven't beaten New Zealand. This is a defining moment in your coaching career. The guy's done brilliantly with the Crusaders. He's a fantastic coach. He's a good guy, but he doesn't have a very good Australian team at the moment. It's ironic that the guy they appoint gets beaten by 30 points the next weekend by the Crusaders. I I don't think there's going to be a metamorphosis in Australian rugby because they've got Ewan McKenzie. Personally, I just think they haven't got a great team.
What about Ireland at the moment? With that
Ireland, I think that also went through. You know, they had Connell at his best, they had Callum at his best at the beginning. Driscoll at 30, not at 34. You had the start of Heaslip, and he's a bloody good at Heaslip, and there was another guy from Ulster, a big ball carrying flanker. Yes, Ferris. Shit, he's a good player as well. So and also they had this Healy as a loose head prop. They finally found a guy who could scrum, which was a bloody advantage. And on the tight end, Hayes went on and on and on and on, but geez, at least he shored up. The ref wasn't sure ever with him. You'd give away penalties, but he'd get penalties. He wasn't a good tight end, but he managed to confuse people into thinking he was. And so that Ireland side did bloody well. I mean, I think when you've got players of the quality of Driscoll and your fly-off who played for the Lions now, Sexton coming through, that was a bloody strong side. But have a look at the team that Italy beat at the end. Geez, it was ravaged by injuries and by dissension. And I mean, was it? Croft. What's that guy, the tight end prop that you played against England last year?
Matt Ross. Oh, that's Tom Court.
Tom Court. Gee, I mean, that guy would struggle to play club rugby. And he got absolutely murdered. So, you're going in against England with a tight end prop. I think they beat you by 30 odd points, but 21 points were from scrums. From scrum infringements or scrum penalties or yellow cards or penalty tries or whatever it was, from scrum infringements. He was terrible. I mean, terrible. So, I mean, there's strength in depth. Is a problem, I think, in Ireland. But when you look at Leinster and Munster, how well they've done, Ulster getting to the final, but you guys now are going the way of France, where in key positions you're getting overseas players, and that's a real balls up as well. So if you're suddenly getting, why did Ulster get there? Because they've got Pienaar and they've got BJ Botha tight end, and they've got the captain there as a South African. You can't start putting your best positions in your provincial teams to overseas internationals. I don't think that's good for your country.
Yeah. Matt, you mentioned many players you've had at your disposal over many years and most sides of the world. How do you influence, how do you coach them key players to make key decisions and perform key skills under pressure? Well,
I think in any game plan that I have, you've got to have certainty. So there's one person who's calling one thing. So whatever you be, if it's a box kick, then it's called by the line organises his forwards. He knows he's kicking the winger, blindside wing calls him, okay, I'm ready, that he's not offside. So every single individual's got to know what his role is. And I would say, when you say key, I'd say your number 8, your scrum half and your fly half. And I think more and more now, your outside centre are key on-field decision makers, because your number 8 is key to lineouts, to scrums, to the coordination between first phase attack and backline. So his communication with the scrum half is vital. He's got to listen to the scrum half. The scrum half's got to listen to the fly half, because whether the scrum half kicks or whether he passes to forward runners or whether he passes behind their backs or in front of them to the fly half, that's the 10's role. He's got to communicate. So he's got to be talking. But he can only look, the 9 is looking at this area of the game, the 10 is looking at what's in front of him and inside his 10 and inside to see what's best for the 9 to do. And then the outside center's got to tell the 10 what to do. Because you can't permanently scan. You can't. You've got to have role players. So on attack, I've always had the scrum half talks to the forwards and to the number 8, particularly from the scrum. The fly half talks to the scrum half and tells him what to do, and the outside centre talks to the fly half to see whether there's space, whether there's a grub opportunity, a chip opportunity, a flat cross kick opportunity, whether they're bunched, whether they're wide, whether we're going to take a short pass, or whether we're going to go behind their backs. So the communication for the fly half comes from outside. That's why when Dan Carter talks, he said, I could never play like I did if I didn't have Smith there, the Conrad Smith, who's a brilliant communicator. And on defence, you have to have an outside centre. Jacques Fourie, when Jacques Fourie left South Africa, he left a huge hole in the organisational ability of the South African side to defend properly. Because he could read opposition players. So whether you fold 2 or whether you stay, where the opposition fullback was going, he didn't have to worry about what was happening here because the ball wasn't going to get to him for a while. So he would be studying the opposition all the time and communicating with the forwards 2 around, 2+1, stay there. The guys who, don't worry, because you could see the change of direction move happening as the All Blacks set up. You could see Dan going across to the line. Stay. No point in following. So your key decision makers have got to be verbal people. Guys who don't mind talking loudly. They can't be a guy who's quiet, very skillful but quiet. You can't have a scrum off who doesn't talk, or a fly off who doesn't talk, or a centre who doesn't talk. I don't believe. I mean, you can do your selections. If you get a guy who's a really good communicator, rather pick him because your whole team is going to play better rather than a guy who'll have a sniping break and can do the individual things well. But no one knows what the hell he's doing because he's not communicating. So, I mean, obviously, they're leaders in every role. Your scrum, I always say the hooker was, the responsibility for the setup in the scrum, my scrum first phases coach would talk through the hooker the whole time. In the lineout, you'd have a key guy, a Matfield, who'd be key to your lineout success. And his sole role was to study your opposition lineouts, or work out what solutions the best solutions against their defensive lineout must come from the player himself. You can't have a coach, a forward coach, going to a player and saying, listen, I've come up with 6 options. And the guy takes a look at the 6 options and he knows what the New Zealanders do on defense and he can see that these aren't going to work. You've got to have a really good rapport between your key lineout guy, and it might be, not everyone's as good as Matfield, but you can develop someone. It should be your number 4 lock, or it can be, I suppose, a number 8 if he's a roving guy up and down the lineup. And his ability must be to have a look at the setup, just like a backline attack player. You don't call a backline attack before you see what the opposition defense structure is. You've got to work out whether they're press defending or whether they're shift defending to work out what attacking move you're going to do. You can't just attack hoping that bloody they're going to shift when they actually press defending, then you're going to get tackled ball and all. You've got to work out, and then you do moves according to their defense pattern. Exactly the same you call in the lineout according to their defensive structures. So if they're really defending the middle and the back, then you must take it at the front all day. Or you must maybe have some dummy moves which allows you then to say if they're defending just on the 15, you can maybe take it over the 15. But you have to have a guy on the field who can call that. You can as a coach give a guy all these line-out things. If he has the inability to read the opposition defensive line-out, you're not going to win your lines because you've got to call to where the hooker feels less pressure. The guy can call all day. The backs are always going to want the ball at the back or in the middle. They always will because they don't like the fact that 3 loose forwards are out. That gives them less time to attack. But the hooker, if he sees a block going up in his Matfield the whole time, watch, he'll throw skew, he'll throw it long, and you put pressure on your hooker. So you've got to get a guy calling that gives less pressure on your hooker to make him throw more accurately, because getting it is better than giving a scrum to the opposition for not straight. So again, hooker for the scrums, line-out, key line-out organizer, and work with him. You sit and work with that guy and show him that guy spends as much time as anyone on videos. And studying what England does, studying what France does, studying what Ireland does, and working their defensive line. And then he also does the defensive line. He says, if they come with this structure, this is our defensive policy. And we can't defend 3 places. You can defend 2. You can defend 2 properly. But it's impossible you get some one-man lifts, but they're not very effective. But Matfield was particularly good at throwing dummies as to where he was defending. So he'd look as though he was defending tight, and when they called, you just go straight back on the throw and win. So he would actually force them to throw where he'd left the space, knowing that he could go back into the space and on the throw. The throw would have to be a lob, and that gave him time to get back. But there are very few people as clever as he is. He's absolutely brilliant. But that's your job as a coach. Scrums, lineouts, opposition, and your own, one key guy. And he and the forward coach, they must sit a long time discussing the opposition before you even go out and practice what you're going to do. And then scrum off for the integral phase players. Your scrum off is to the forwards, your fly off to the scrum off in the centre there. And then I suppose your fullback controls the back three. But so you want to get a lot of. That's why we always hear the bloody All Blacks talk about we've got a good leadership group. They never tell you we've got a good captain. It was a good leadership group because they'll have responsibilities for areas of the game.
You used mixed martial arts guy.
Yeah.
This is just for the conditioning coaches. Why did you decide on Omar, and what did he bring to the Italian team?
Well, the areas, it's I mean, it's really a no-brainer. You have, what do you have, about 25 lineouts in a game, maybe 15 scrums, and there'll be over 200 tackles a game. And so with 200 tackles, there'll probably be over 150 breakdowns. So a lot of coaches will spend a shitload of time on scrums and lineouts, and they'll just a cursory bloody look at a breakdown and teach them, I want you to go, have a nice long bloody, when you get tackled, I want you to, like a pin and get the ball out low, and you do a couple of minutes of racking and a couple of minutes of, but they don't spend time on the breakdown, and the breakdown is a key area of the game. So this Omar guy, who I'd heard through coming back on holiday here, we had good pack of forwards, and seeing as we were setting up quite a few breakdowns because of the way we played, I wanted to try and make it as quick as possible. And I thought that getting a really good defense coach, teaching individuals, I mean, from a defense point of view, where Omar was absolutely brilliant, and he's a very, very good coach. What he does is he does the collective first phase defense systems. So he works on with the whole team. He works on opposition attacking moves and our defensive structure from their first phase moves. Then from each first phase move, he'll explain to players, if they do this and they do the following, then these guys. So every player, as he calls it, when they walk in, there's a recognition of the setup, of an All Black setup before you get there. You get there, you have a look at the setup that they've got and the lineup that they've got, and already it's going to trigger a move that Omar has already said that he's seen that they're going to do. So already you know their options. This is not a drive, this is going to be off the top, and there are going to be 3 options in the midfield. So that ability to recognize. Then the role of each person tackling those 3 options is clearly defined. Then following that move, if they get momentum, what do the All Blacks do after that? They usually go the same way. If they don't get momentum, they'll do a pick and drive straight down the same channel. What is each defensive role in that? So the team collective defense, as well as the first phase defense, he addresses all of that. Then every single player he takes for different tackling techniques. The tackling technique of a pick and go, how you tackle a guy who does a pick and go. How you tackle a guy if you can get him on his feet and the choke tackle holding him up, and because the guy was a cage fighter, and he was only 85 kilograms, this guy had an unbelievable balance, core, strength, the ability to stay on his feet and be strong in contact. He was very good at, and he could because he was also a little guy, and he fought bigger guys. He said, I can't stay on my feet with a big guy for long. I've got to get him on the ground because I'm quicker than him on the ground. So his ability to put someone down was incredible. And he's little like this little bloke. So right, Castro Giovanni said, you can't be a defense coach when you look like a bloody, like an outside back. So he said, I always like someone who says that. So he says to Castro, he said, I'll tell you what, I lie on my back. And in the dining room, the first day he got there, he lay on his back on the ground. He said, put both your hands around my throat. And when I say go, you can squeeze my throat as hard as you want. 123 kilos, Castro Giovanni, this guy 85 kilos. So he gets, and the whole team is watching. He's lying in the middle of a dining room like it, on his back like it, and he's lying, and he says, both hands around my throat. So Castro goes now, he's got his legs nice and wide, and he's sitting on him. Shit, I said, this looks bugger. He's never going to... And he says, okay, go. And so Castro starts, and I swear to God, it was not more than 5 seconds. He got a leg over Castro and into one arm, and he's got another arm here, and Castro, he got his arm on the ground, Castro's head into the carpet with an arm here, and he had a knee on the back of his arm. He's going to break his arm. Castro's hitting through. Stop! Oh, shit, that's effective. Right? That's really effective. They listened to every single thing he said about defense after that, because he was. You can imagine. I mean, you just taken out the biggest guy, and he just said afterwards. He said, "Listen," he said, "I often do that because you've never done cage fighting. So there are." With you putting all your weight here, leaning forward, but you haven't stopped, you're only controlling my throat, you're not controlling left, right arm, or either leg. And I can use all of these. And he did, incredibly quickly, to put him over on his side and to get his bloody arm in a very uncomfortable position. So he would take, Sergio Parisse is a brilliant rugby player. He's a terrible defender, really dreadful, because he's a guy who anticipates all the time. He's a bloke who anticipates opposition chip, he anticipates what they're going to do. He's always looking for the intercept, and he comes out of line. So he's not a collective guy. Gee, he He worked on Sergio probably more as the captain of the team. He'd take Sergio for 15 minutes at the end of every practice, making sure with two other defenders that he understood if we were numbered down, how we had to turn the shoulders towards the touchline. If you're numbered up, how you come up together and you make sure that that we're in exactly the same line and no one comes out of the line. And who's the tackler, who's the assistant tackler, who's the guy who stops the offload, the role of every single individual player. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So he was very, very good on the defensive structures, but incredibly good too at the breakdown. So in terms of cleaning techniques, in terms of getting over the ball without going off your feet, I mean, he worked within the laws. He sat, because Rassie Erasmus is one of the best technical brains, I think, in South Africa. And when he was director of Western Province, he and Jacques Nienaber, who's his brother-in-law, who's worked with the Stormers, one of the reasons why the Stormers, over the last 3 or 4 seasons, have regularly had the least tries scored against them, is because of that relationship. And Omar worked with those guys. So not only did he come with the cage fighting skills, but he also came with the expertise that he'd learned, just as I learned when I was overseas from Australians and New Zealanders. He'd learned from rugby people who actually understood the breakdown and the laws of the game and what referees tend to blow. So the whole thing about making sure you didn't go off your feet, that you kept your head up, that you were strong over the tackle, that if someone was counter-racking you, you made yourself into a little ball, but you kept yourself on the player by holding onto his jersey and the body position. Unbelievable. He was very, very, very good. And not surprisingly, from when he came, the last 18 months we had our best, most competitive results against almost every country we played against. So you've got to have specialists. He was a really good defense specialist. And another thing about coaching, I almost only spoke about attack there, but you spend at least 50% on defense in a game. Go through any of the stats after a game. I mean, if a side gets 52 and the other 48, it's a massive difference. So you've got to spend, when you coach, 50% of your time at least on defense. And you've got to spend 5 times more time on the breakdown than you do on scrummaging. You can't ignore scrummaging, but everyone's got to learn to do the breakdown. Outside centres, wingers, fullbacks. You play a wide player and your outside centre, fullback and winger possession with one open side flanker. Shit, if they can't ruck properly or stay on their feet or know how to stay strong over the ball, you're going to lose possession out wide. Opposition are going to counter-ruck you. That's the worst ball you could possibly lose. So the defensive role is absolutely crucial. And funny enough, I was asked to apply for that England job, which Lancaster got. But I got down to the last 2. And on attack, I had Wayne Smith, who had agreed to come. Wayne Smith is without doubt the best backline attack coach in the world, in my view. He's absolutely brilliant. I coached against him as a Springbok coach back in 2000 when he was head coach of the All Blacks, and he found the pressure of being a head coach a little bit too much. But he then became an assistant coach to Graham Henry. And just think of the All Blacks attack over the last 8 years. I think it's been innovative and interesting, exciting to watch. And then he's gone to the Chiefs. Chiefs won the last, and they're in the final this year. So whatever happens, you cannot take away that guy's talent. And he wanted to come to England because he felt, and I felt, that one of England's real problems was their ability to attack like the All Blacks. Great pack of forwards, honest, hard-working guys, but no inspiration in their attack. And then on defence, I would have asked Rassie Erasmus to come as a technical advisor and his son-in-law to come as a defence coach, because I thought Jacques, they might not have come, they might not have liked London, but that would have been a hell of a strong coaching staff. Wayne Smith, the defence coach, like Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus, whose technical ability is unmatched. But Lancaster's done a bloody good job. But that's what you've got to do now as a head coach. It's not just one guy, it's a group. Yeah.
The South Africans are renowned for their bowling.
Yeah.
Is there a particular opponent that was particularly good at counting bowling?
Yeah, I think the All Blacks have got it right. They're the ones who defend the maul the best. But unfortunately, it's a law that I don't particularly. I think it's instruction. So rugby, I think, haven't got it right. That you're allowed to put 6 people in front of a ball carrier, and you can actually, literally tear people out the way and drag your way forward. Yet in rugby, if I carry the ball and I miss, the guy just, he runs a bit too quickly in the midfield and he goes ahead and I run behind his back. Straight away, obstruction, that's a penalty. For goodness sake. I mean, what's more obstruction? 6 guys pulling defenders out, and you know how to tackle it, you know how to come in from the side. You know, the only opportunity is the moment the guy gets the ball, and if you touch him, if you get your timing fractionally wrong, you're playing the ball to the guy in the air. So you've got a split second before he's transferred the ball to try and even if you sack that guy, they've got 5 other guys around him, and those 3 guys just get up, and suddenly it's 8, and suddenly they've got time. And the referees aren't now good at saying use it once. They're giving the guys more and more opportunity. When it came out, the refs were very strict. Use it. And as the guy caught it, use it. And then the next time, use it again, twice. Now it takes them 1 minute before they say use it once. By that time, once you structure them more, you can't really defend it. Not a stuff. So the one team that does it well, the people who defend it worst are the people who put 6 guys straight behind where the guy catches the ball. Because all that happens then, that's what the Sharks try to do, you know, or someone tried to do against the Sharks. I think it was the last game they played. Is that where the guy catches the ball, they immediately try and drive that back and leave 1 guy in the blind, 1 guy in the open. But all you do with that is just use that power to just shift it. You know? And the moment they push like hell, but you've shifted 5 away, all they're doing is pushing 3 guys who haven't got the ball anymore. And they're all 6 out of the defensive pattern. So you almost guarantee that 5 guys left are going to score. The All Blacks do it differently. They will have 1 guy taking the catcher. They'll have the 2 guys on either side who take the two support players off. So they put 3 into the initial one. Then they have 2 on the left and 2 on the right. So they make a massive effort to get that one down quickly, and then they work incredibly hard. They try and get on their feet before the ball catcher gets on his feet. So if that moves a little bit to the right, they hit it with 2 and 2 more. So they hit it with 4 as it peels round. So you brought them to ground, and if it peels to the left, 2 and the 2 on that side come around quickly. So 4 hit it, but really hard. You know? Get the 3 up, and then you'll have 1 other. You know, you still have 2 and 2 on either side because you've got your 8 forwards there. The hooker comes in, the scrum off is behind controlling, and they'll hit 4 and 4 and 4 and 4. But they are incredibly aggressive about how they do it. So the defense of a driving ball is all about mental attitude. You can't defend a driving ball in a passive way. You've got to be absolutely violent about it. And I used to try and get our team to collapse. If they had a driving ball, the moment you got it moving backwards, collapse it. Because I've yet to see a referee penalise a team who collapses a retreating driving ball. They collapse it, you immediately get penalised. If the ball goes forward and you collapse it, you get penalised. But if you can get that going backwards even 2 or 3 yards and then drag it to the ground, he says more turnover and gives you the ball because he sees you going forward. So you try and get your forwards to just get them going back a bit, and then as they're going back, don't keep it on the feet. Deliberately collapse it, and you can get away with it often. If the referee sees that the momentum you've got momentum, and that's gone to ground, the referee tends to give your side. So I think that's how you defend it, but it's hell of a hard to once it's set up and structured. And if you take South Africa, there was a game where the Bulls played and the Sharks played, and I was doing the television commentary, and I think out of the 8 tries scored, 7 of them came from driving mauls. So I thought, you take the driving maul out of South African rugby, where are we going to score our tries? Because it's a possibility. I know the All Blacks don't like it. They don't like going to, whether it's part of rugby, but is it really legal? I don't think so.
Nick, as an international coach, which areas did you struggle with from a referee? When you looked at the referee, which areas do you feel in control of as a coach and you can improve, and which areas do you feel, look, it depends on the person managing the game?
You're never really in control ever as a coach. It really is tough. I think the manageables are your behaving properly with regard to it. You've just got to understand that shouting, and even if you ask the way that Richie McCaw asked, or ask in the way that Fitzpatrick used to ask, or ask in the way John Smith used to ask, in a very humble and inquiring way, not shut ref, can't use, that's never going to get you anywhere, never ever. There were a couple of things we worked out. One was a clear, if a referee talks to a front row, and like the 2 front rows, and he talks to the Wales front row, then we could collapse the next scrum and we were going to get the penalty. Guaranteed, even if we collapsed it. You knew that if he talked to this front row, that was the area he thought was a problem. And if he was talking to us, I used to say, just give them the ball, just keep it up, don't even attack that scrum, don't try, because if he's talking to Castro saying, I've spoken to you, get your bind higher, don't then have a go, because he's just said what he's going to do. And even if the other guy goes down, he's going to say, no, I've just spoken to you. And everyone on television has heard me talk to you, it can't be the other's fault. So the areas that you know, just instinctively the referee is going to drill you. But you've got to make your team aware of one absolute fact, and that is that 95% of games, the home team is favoured in the penalty count against the away team. And it will happen when you play at home. So you've got to understand that you are going to get the rub of the green, you're going to get the 3 or 4 penalties more than the opposition. Because statistically, the IRB will give you the statistics of Super Rugby games, the statistics of Test matches, of Six Nations games. It is, I'm being kind to say 90. He told me, the guy at the IRB conference told me 98% of games. So you will have Springboks playing the All Blacks at Newlands. The penalty count will be 12 against the All Blacks, 8 against the Springboks. You'll go and play in Dunedin. It'll be 11-7 against South Africa. So there's a 4 penalty turnaround. Now, it makes a massive difference in a game, because it's 4 they don't get and 4 you get. So it's 8 difference. There's an 8 penalty difference. Now that translates, in my view, into 9 points to 12 points, 9 or 12 points difference. So when you go and play away, you've got to explain to your players, there's nothing you can do about it. It's not one referee cheating, it's just every referee is influenced by a crowd, by a home crowd. He wouldn't be human. We as human beings want to fit in. It's just a simple thing. We want to fit in as human beings. If you booed every time you blow the whistle, you're not fitting in. So the guy realizes it's just that much easier to blow for the guys, yeah, rather than, oh, you asshole. So, one of the tragic things about rugby, and it's why it's such a difficult sport for a coach and for a referee, is in any breakdown, I will blow correctly a penalty for either team. So one guy might be fractionally before, he might have given like the guy holding on is fractionally before the guy who comes over the top or cleans out or comes in a little bit from the side. But that guy holding on was the initial penalty. And the guy coming in, now if the guy coming in from the side is the guy playing away from home, and the guy holding on is the guy at home, it's much easier to say coming in from the side, you're right. You're actually right, he did come in from the side. And the guy holding it on the ball is the guy playing at home, you would have been right to penalise that guy. Now when you get laws that allow you to penalise either team in the same situation, we're asking too much of one individual, in my view, who's influenced strongly by the peripheral noise and the peripheral. It's not one referee. You can't say Tape Henning's biased or Craig Gilbert's biased. They're not biased, they're just human. They are all. So you've got to explain this to your players and say, when you go and play in Wales, we're going to start 9-0 down. Understand it. Don't get cross about that penalty. Don't get cross about this, because it's going to happen. You are going to get 8 and they're going to get 12. But when we play them back home, we're going to get 12 and 8. And what really pissed me off about that game against New Zealand was that bastard wasn't blowing properly. We were playing at home. And because it was the All Blacks, and because it was Italy, there was such a disparity in his mind, Dickinson's mind, between the quality of New Zealand and the quality of Italy. He couldn't think that we could possibly, even though the evidence was right in front of his very eyes, he just thought, shit, I can't penalise New Zealand. Penalty try against New Zealand by Italy, shit, they're 11th in the world. But the evidence was in front of him. They couldn't handle our double shove in the scrum. We were much better than them. So that's where I really get pissed off. Tupper was actually, you'll remember, Tupper was, in my first year, we played Australia, and we played Australia at Padua. And Tupper was the referee adjudicator, and it was Lawrence. Mark Lawrence, the infamous Mark Lawrence from the quarterfinal South Africa, Australia, and the guy who I thought was a fantastic, Bryce Lawrence, not Mark, sorry, beg your pardon, Bryce, geez, Mark, I don't want to do him a disservice. The New Zealander. And he was my big mate, because a few years later we beat France thanks to him not penalising my Italian side for collapsing. So, you get the rub of the green. But the one game, and Tap will bear me out, We play Australia, the score is 20 points to 23, and there are 3 minutes to go. And we've just missed a long-range penalty. They've never Italy's never beaten Australia. Padua, the crowd is going, man, beside themselves with excitement. Australia get a line out just outside our 22, and they do a backline move which has a dummy runner, Mortlock. And Mortlock runs, and our defensive system was perfectly in place. And Quade Cooper dummies to Mortlock, who runs and knocks Sergio Parisse off his feet. He hits him. Sergio actually fell over. Cooper, because he saw Mortlock, he doesn't pass the ball. He looks up, he sees Sergio on his back, he runs straight past Sergio and scores under the pass. We lose the game 30-20. If ever I came close to punching a referee, it was that day. I swear to God. It was so obvious. I mean, it wasn't just a dummy runner with some brief contact in the defender. He actually hit him off his feet. And video evidence afterwards proved that and Cooper ran straight through. I mean, Sergio's on his back when he runs past him here. I mean, shit, when referees get that, then really and truly, it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking. Because, that is so, thank goodness I went in there and I was so angry, I couldn't actually speak to him. And I saw Tapu, who I'd known from South Africa, and I said, "Did you see that? Did you see it?" And he said, "Shit, I saw it. Don't worry, it's in my report. Don't worry about it. Don't swear at him. Don't shout at him." And so I was, hey, Tapu, that's true. Incredible. But they're only human. You know what Bryce Lawrence said afterwards? He said, "I'm sorry I was unsighted." I was unsighted. The guy's 5'6". I don't know, maybe Castro was in front of him. But as far as I was concerned, it was impossible not to see that. Or the 2 touch judges. How could they possibly not see that? So, you've heard me. One win, we wouldn't be sitting here saying, Nick Mallett talking about excellence in sport if the guy blown me up, for Ollie Leroux falling over the wrong side. Or the win against Nick Mallett, the first Italian coach to beat the French. Wouldn't have said that if Bryce Lawrence had penalised my side, for collapsing a scrum. But on the other hand, I've lost a couple. I was fired as a Springbok coach. Listen to this one, because it bloody burns me to death. I was fired as Springbok coach because I said ticket prices were too expensive. But let me tell you what really pissed me off was the last game was against Australia. Australia were World Cup winners in 1999, and we'd gone out in the semi-finals. And we'd beaten New Zealand 46 points to 40 at Ellis Park the week before. One of the best. Wayne Smith, attacking coach, All Black coach. Nick Mallett, attacking coach. We scored 6 tries against the All Blacks. All 6 scored by my backline players. All 6. 46 points remains to this day the most points New Zealand have ever conceded, and 6 tries is the most points that New Zealand have ever conceded in a test match. 1 week later I was fired. We played Australia. We get a kick with 2 minutes to go. Bram van Straten from the halfway line kicks the bloody thing over. We go ahead 18-16. They kick off, we kick it out from the lineup, they throw it in, they knock it on. These times are almost up. I have John Smith on. John Smith comes on, first cap for South Africa or second cap, he loses a tight head. I should have kept Mark Drosko on, one of the biggest errors I made. But I thought guys were getting tired, put him on. Australia start this face play attack with Larkham and Gregan and all the guys. We eventually tackle Joe Roth, left wing. He gets tackled by Joost, cover tackle. Joost tackles him. Corne Krige by open side flank, over the ball, and he's got both hands on the ball. And the ref shouts, "Leave it, leave it." So Joe Roth leaves it. Corne Krige rips it out, gives it to the scrum half, he kicks it out. The referee says, "Green, I told you to leave it." The ruck was formed, penalty to Australia. Both the players thought that Roth thought he was in the wrong. Corne Krige thought he had all the rights. And the referee, by saying leave it, hadn't said who must leave it. Mortlock from a touchline. He couldn't kick his way out of a paper bag. He kicks it over from the touchline. We lose 19-18. I don't have a job the next weekend. So you can understand I get really a bit brassed off with refereeing decisions. No. You must have heard enough from me. I've got a plane to catch. I don't know. Quarter. Any more questions? Yes.
In your view, will the team contribute to the more accuracy of the referee in tight situations like that obstruction? Do you think that would benefit?
Yes, absolutely. No. There isn't a single coach of international rugby, in my view, who doesn't want clarity. You don't mind conceding a try. Never. And if you've made a mistake, you defensively made a mistake, and I scored a try, fine. But it must be, you've got video evidence, use it. You've got it, and even, geez, Tup, if you look at Super Rugby this year, and you look at how hard a lot of those TMO calls are, with slowed down, I mean, shit, it's not surprising referees made sort of, gut calls and things in the old days. You look like a try, if it looks like a try, and feels like a try, the water try, but you might not have seen it. With the TMO now, the number where he actually does lose possession that far above the, where the ball just comes out of his hand, it's extraordinary, Now, I'm not really wanting all those to be disallowed because I think that those are, the guy probably should have scored a try. But when there's a clear forward pass, when there's a clear obstruction, clear evidence of opposition using a strategy on attack that has deprived you of an opportunity to stop a try that you could have stopped if you hadn't been interfered with, then please, one guy can't see it all. It's impossible.
Would you see that that will be useful at the lap scrums? Refer to the TMO who's responsible?
I tell you what, I actually heard some guy come up with a thought. I'm very interested to see how this crouch touch bind set is going to work, because my opinion is that's going to be much better. I think you're going to see but you need a technical, someone who knows about scrummaging now, because when you don't get the hit, it's no longer the Bachiada as you hit and get and everyone says you got the hit, therefore they're going to win the scrum. Now, when you go in with no power, now it's about the technical expertise of each propper. So you're going to get a tight head. His angle and where he binds and the loose head, if he drops, that is going to be. So if the referee, I think, you need, at that moment, you need two officials on the field. You need either a touch judge must come on the field and he must stand, not officiate, but he must officiate that side of the scrum, and the ref officiates where the ball's being put in. And then he pisses off, gets off the field again, and the referee takes over. But just for that, because you know as well as I do, if the guy walks around, you can guarantee it goes down on the other side. And the touch judge's too far away. We're all human beings, rugby players are human beings. If you can get an edge, if you can cheat, you're going to cheat. So prop, if he thinks that touch judge, he's over there, 45, he's never going to see if I put my hand on the ground and just change the angle a bit. But if you have a guy standing right next door to you, you're not going to do it. So I think that's maybe not having the video, because the game might then become so stop-start. But if you have someone there and the crouch bind, and they're looking all the time to see whether it's a long bind over the top and the loose head's got him on the jersey underneath, no one's on the arm, the hips and the shoulders and the head are square or parallel to the touchline. The ball's put in straight, we might even see a tight end again. We might even see a guy hooking a tight end, back to the days when the guy actually has a go. So I think that's going to be very, very good for rugby, because even though I coached it with Italy, but mine was such a negative mindset, I didn't want the All Blacks to have the ball. So the longer we could hold on to the ball in the scrum, the less chance I had that they were going to score a try. I know from a television viewing point of view, we have a duty to make this sport as attractive as possible, because we're competing now with Open golf, Wimbledon tennis, Ashes. You can turn on 6 different Tour de France, anything you can turn on, you can watch. If our game isn't exciting, no one's going to watch it. No one's going to watch it. I've had personal evidence from 20 players that I played with, ex-Springboks, so we don't watch this kind. I don't like seeing up and unders and chasing and flap scrums and driving mauls. I don't enjoy it. I don't want to watch it. I'd rather mow the lawn.
Just the last thing, Nick, I'd just like to say something about a law at the scrum.
Yes.
And I don't think it will surprise you, but maybe you're not aware of it. There's a use it or lose it at the scrum.
And that is good. Really?
Yeah.
When was that brought in?
Well, that was brought after 99 World Cup. It's been in the law book forever, but not applied properly.
It was never applied. I never realized that you had, because how can you tell a number 8 with an advancing scrum and he's controlling it, everything's good, and he's controlling, he's going forward, and he's playing for the penalty? How can you tell him to use it?
The key is the same. It must be advancing.
Oh, I see. Yes. Oh, no. That's fine. Okay. Yeah. If it goes, sorry. So it's like, if it's not going forward, don't sit there all day waiting. No, I can understand that. But this, unfortunately, the French scrum was going forward very fast when he said use it.
Then just the last thing. The penalty try is scrum. It's
Yes.
not a penalty for an infringement. It's just giving you the try that you probably would have scored.
Yes.
So momentum becomes part of that. It's difficult for a referee if the scrum is not moving forward to award a penalty try, because there's no indication that the ball and players are going towards the
But
ball.
hell, that's really, without Tapper, you're talking shit. Because if a team, in order not to go backwards, collapses a scrum, then you're depriving me of the opportunity to go forward. So you're saying you didn't go forward, therefore it can't be a penalty try. But I'm giving you a penalty because they collapsed. But you're not accepting that they collapsed in order not to go backwards. I mean, you've got to use logic here. The reason they go down is because they don't want to go backwards. If they went backwards, we would score a penalty try. There's a greater chance that I would score a penalty try, quite frankly, from a double shoved scrum that goes backwards than you have of a guy being held back half a second or a rolling ball in the in-goal area that could bounce, and guys give penalty tries like that. I mean, I didn't accept Dickinson's thing. When he said that you weren't going forward, I said, but how can a pack go forward over one that's lying on the ground? You kept on penalising them for technical infringements that were depriving me of the opportunity of going forward.
The description of a penalty try does not allow us, and we need to stick to that.
Okay.
I just want to say one thing, Nick. We had Nigel Owens in a game, we had a similar problem. And there was a collapse before the ball was put in, and he awarded a penalty try, which was totally unfair and
I do know.
unaccepted in the law. But it was exactly the same problem that you experienced in that All Black game.
Yeah. Well, then that needs to be addressed. I'm on that RRB committee. I'll bloody well raise it. I mean, I need to chat to you too. Well, I'm going to talk to all the coaches. No, just to find out. Well, you must tell me what you think needs to be looked at, because as the only coach on that committee, all the others are ex-players. I'd like to come from a coaching perspective and say, listen, this is an area of problem, that's an area of problem, but we can improve the game for everyone and make it simpler for referees.
We would love to have that too.
Yes.
Because that will change player behaviour.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Put yourself on the other end of the equation when you're in that 5 metre situation.
Yeah.
Now, I know and you know that if you have Castro or something like that, you're probably going to have a dominant scrum.
Yeah.
But as a referee, we're bound to that word probable, probable try.
Yes.
Versus possible try.
Yes.
Now I agree with you, I get annoyed too when you're watching on the television, you see 3 penalties for the scrum collapsing. But that's the difference between a moving scrum and a stationary scrum. And yes, your scrum possibly would have been moving forward, and yes, by all rights, every other 19 scrums of the game, it should have been moving forward, if not for that guy going off. I mean, that's the yellow card, we have that, but the penalty try is not the next step. Although it very well could.
Why do they do it then? Why I've seen it being awarded in other games.
That's incorrect.
And
I'm
I've
not
seen,
supposed to do it.
And I've also seen the teams who, like some teams playing Australia in the past, where Australia was supposed to have a bad. Well, look, I'll give you an exact example. The Lions test, they got Poit in there. Poit, a Northern Hemisphere referee, they're much more strict on the breakdown. 9 penalties against the Australian scrum, whereas in the previous 2 refereed by Southern Hemisphere referees, they
No,
didn't
I
get
agree with you. Blow the penalties, but you cannot, going on that penalty try issue, if you have doubt in your mind that that team is going to go over and score, if the scrum's not moving, you have to say to yourself, well, is it moving? No. Where's the ball? It's
well, then keep giving yellow cards until they scrum with 6 players.
that's fine.
And then put on the blacks in there and then I'll pass it.
And then it will be advancing, and then you can give the penalty
But
try.
if you have 21, you're telling me as a referee, you have 21 resets. And
I'm not justifying the resets, I'm simply adjusting on the fact that if the scrum is not travelling, a penalty is fine, a yellow card is fine, but you cannot give a penalty try. I cannot say within good faith, even if you're the best scrummager in the world and I'm the worst scrummager in the world, you cannot say to me, the referee cannot tell me that
well, I'm
I'm
going to change that law, don't you? Because I'm not going to have people talking that shit to me when I'm a coach. And I know my scrum is dominant. So now you're telling me I've got a shit scrum, so I can just carry on collapsing until and not get a penalty try. Rubbish. You must get penalised if you're not good enough. And you must have a penalty try if you're not good enough. You know, simple as that. Yeah. Good. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
From Cowboy Bennett. Imagine the rugby committee meetings. There'll be some action.
Why did he have such a go?
What did he say? Well, he's lost 2 jobs because of referees. What did he say? He said there was a very valid argument. He said, "Oh, that's shit."
then you can understand.
Look, that if there's just one thing that you're going to take away is his passion. You know, forget about his methodology or anything else.
The only thing I enjoy about Nick, he doesn't want to be controversial.
No. That's probably as controversial as we've ever been on this course. I could see Tupper grinding out. Tupper was sitting there. And you know, Tupper's also a bit hot-headed, you know, and he doesn't like, his argument would be, if I'm your wife's gynecologist, do you go in and tell your wife's gynecologist what he should do? So he says, you know, the same applies for a coach. You shouldn't tell a referee what to do. So that's kind of, so you can't really go close to Tupper. He was hammering away. I could see Tupper tensing up.
I could understand it completely. In fact, I tell you what, in my younger days, I'd have been through the chairs, I tell you. Seriously.
But he was good, man.
Yes, but you cannot let your passion to be uncontrolled like that.
Well, that's what they said, right? He also said to him after 80 days.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, the nice thing is, I think high performance, Richie, in my opinion, a lot of these people bring kind of an edge to it.
Oh yes.
Like Warren Gatland would be, in another way, would also be controversial. Tim Noakes, in his way, would be controversial. I think we should allow for it, but we should let common sense guide you. So you take what you want and you leave what you want. And don't go fight with referees. It's not, you're not going to win that one.
That's why you take the plane.
Listen, without any further ado, interesting thing, and we stumbled on it before I introduce our next speaker. We thought that if you want to transfer young, developed players, if you want to fast track them into high performance very quickly, we thought the two areas that you should target would have been sports science, because at the age of 18 you could really make a massive difference in 6 months with a good conditioning program, because the bodies, especially young adult men, are very susceptible of growth and good diet and so forth. So you can show change really quickly in that. And then the other areas, we kind of looked at all the stats, and we said, look, if the guy is skillful in this, that and the other, then he can. However, what we did is we employed a physiotherapist who played professional rugby, who couldn't qualify to study physiotherapy straight out of school, so he had to become a sports scientist. And what he's taught us is that if you want to go into high performance, your players are your most important commodity. And the way that you get buy-in from players is that you show them that you really care. That if a guy gets a knock and he's unconscious, you take him off the park. If he's an injury and you've got to go and win games, there's somebody standing behind and looking after this guy because he's not part of the team anymore and he might feel isolated. And we then realised that, look, the way that you can show you really care about your players is a good medical program. That's the best way, and it gets parents on your side and it gets players on your side. And we now have created a culture where senior players, if they get long-term injuries, they come back here and they do their rehabilitation. Because we are sitting in an environment that can look after guys. Because we're not concerned about winning week in, week out. That's not our job. So think about that. So I think introduce Clint Reedian. He's Senior Manager Medical at SA Rugby. And I've just asked Clint to come and just chat to us about player safety. Again, with the view in mind that they are the most important commodity that you'll ever have. And if we don't show proper care for them, you know, what are we going to have to work with?
Steve, thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Well, morning everyone, and just thanks for your time. Just before I kick off, I must apologize. I haven't done my homework in terms of finding out the level of coach I'm going to be talking to today. So I don't know if you're coaching schools, if you're coaching clubs, if you're coaching professionals. So we'll be doing a talk that sort of covers a broad spectrum of rugby safety. And but I prepared the talk as though I was a coach and it would be something that I wanted to know. So I must put that out there. So what I do encourage from you while I'm talking today is that in talks going along, if there's something that you think of that I haven't actually mentioned or haven't spoken about, just raise your hand and ask the question. I don't even care if it's in line with what I'm saying. I think it's important that if you've got something on your mind you want to discuss it, it's player safety, it's concussion, it's whatever's on your mind, if it comes up, stop me, let's ask that question, because I often find that sometimes that level of you know, when the debate goes that way, because someone else has raised a question that they're interested in, there are a lot more people in the room that actually are interested in that as well, because that's quite topical at the time and that people want to know information about that. Just a little bit about me. As Steph did say, I'm now currently SORI's Senior Medical Manager. My background though, I'm a physiotherapist, qualified at UCT in '94. I worked for 18 years in the sports medicine field, focused on rugby, worked for the University of Cape Town, worked at the University of Stellenbosch for Maltese, got involved with Western Province, went right through their junior ranks to Currie Cup, and then got involved with SA Rugby and looked after the SA 21 side, and went right through to the Inter World Cup in 2007. So that's my clinical background, so if there are any clinical questions that come up and you want to speak to me about that, by all means feel free. Just in brief, the way we're going to today's the chat, I'm going to focus on the relevant risk that players are exposed to. I think it's important as coaches we understand what that risk is, get a feeling for that risk. Then we're going to also talk about concussion. I think concussion is very topical today, and it's the only injury, the thing about the IRB actually got a regulation for. Every other injury in the body, there's no regulation. IRB actually got regulation 10 talks to concussion only. So I think we've got to totally understand concussion. And then I think it's very important though that even though you may work with medical teams and have a medical team that surrounds you, I think it's very important that coaches understand the decision making that goes into returning a player back to play. I think it's important that you know or aware of what medical staff think of. And if you don't have a medical staff, I think it's important that you understand that these are the areas that you've got to consider with regards to returning a player back to play. So that's what we're going to touch on today. Just with regards, Steph, you know, guys, make notes if you want to make notes, but you know, just feel free to listen. I'll hand this presentation to Steph straight afterwards, so you guys can, you literally can have it. Okay, just with this, I thought this was quite apt. I was going through the British Journal of Sports Medicine just the other day, and I saw an article entitled this, Rugby Union, faster, higher, stronger, keeping and evolving sports safe. And I thought this was very apt, and the reason why it was very apt because today the game's gone professional, and as the top end of the game gets more and more professional, so that professionalism seeps through the less professional ranks and into the school ranks. So the game, whether we like it or not, at schoolboy level, at club level, is also getting faster, it's higher, it's stronger. And in keeping with that, the people that manage the game for us, basically in the world, the RB, SANS, all of those people, they're looking for a better product. They want a product that's faster, stronger, higher, that appeals more to the public out there, that they can sell more television rights and make more money. So I thought it was a very apt heading in terms of where the game is going. And while that's all happening, what are we actually doing to keep the sport safe and keep our players safe? We all should know this, but you know, I just thought it was worthwhile putting in the definition of safety and keeping it in the back of our mind while I go through this whole presentation. Is just that It's a condition of being protected from unlikely cause of danger, risk or injury. So we've got a responsibility. If we're going to deal with rugby safety, if we believe it's an area that we've got to focus on, we've got a responsibility to protect people from danger, risk or injury. Considering the sport we play, there's a reduced risk of risk and injury. And just with regards to that, obviously, if something's particularly unsafe, you've got to introduce mechanisms to make it safe. And we, especially with regards to rugby around the world, New Zealand, they've got a very good injury prevention program with Rugby Smart. South Africa have got the Walk Smart program. Those people from countries that don't have those injury prevention programs have got the IB Rugby League, which can log online and also get all that information. So basically, are rugby players at risk of getting injured? And if they are, what should we do? What should we be doing about it? And I just thought before we go into that, the talk today is going to have a real scientific